The UN's Palestinian refugee agency, UNRWA, says 6 of its workers have been killed in airstrikes on a school used as a shelter for displaced people in central Gaza. Gazan officials say up to 18 people were killed in the attacks. UNRWA says it's the highest death toll among staff in a single incident since the start of the war between Israel and Hamas in October. The Israeli military says it was targeting militants operating a command centre in the grounds of the Al-Jaouni hot school. Tens of thousands of Palestinians driven from their homes by Israeli offensives and evacuation orders are living in Gaza's schools. Those sheltering at the facility have described the strike.
The sound of an explosion shook the building. We went out running and saw body parts thrown everywhere in the shelter. My children are still missing. 4 of my children. I do not know where they are. I do not know where my daughters are. Even my wife is sleeping here in this corner. Where is my wife? I don't know where my wife is.
Well, Bill Deere is UNRWA's Washington director, and he joins us now live. Very good morning to you. What do you know about what happened?
Thanks, Lorna, and let me just begin by also thanking the Australian people and the Australian government. They have been incredibly generous to UNRWA and to the humanitarian work that we do. What you saw here today is another representation of what we think is seemingly no bottom to this tragedy. This was the single deadliest day for our agency in the 75-year history, but all told, we've lost 220 of our colleagues to date to this conflict. That also makes this the deadliest conflict in UN history in terms of casualties from UN staff loss perspective. This is, though, also not, it's not unique. There have been to date 464 incidents logged of incidents damaging 190 UNRWA installations, some of them several times over. As a result, almost 600 displaced civilians who were sheltering at UN schools or facilities under the blue flag have been killed, with another 1,800 injured.
What exactly were your workers doing at the school?
It's our school. We run the largest school system in Gaza prior to October 7th, and they are, many of them are set up as emergency shelters. This is where people literally shelter under the protection, well, the sort of protection, I suppose, these days, of the UN blue flag. We provide food as such as we can, medicine, social services like psychosocial support for the children.
The IDF says it was being used as a command and control centre by Hamas.
Well, international humanitarian law is clear that one is supposed to minimize civilian casualties, and raining down airstrikes on a shelter with thousands of people at it, I think is very hard to justify the results over the intention.
How much contact does your organisation have with the IDF in terms of knowing where your people are working?
Lorna, that's an excellent question. The IDF has the GPS locations of every UNRWA facility. And in fact, they have the GPS coordinates of every UN facility, and they are updated daily. Another factor to keep in mind is that UN and UNRWA, my agency, do not wake up in the morning and say, today I'll drive to X and deliver water. It all has to be coordinated in advance. The movements have to be coordinated in advance with the Israeli Defense Force. And what you might have recalled seeing on Monday is that a UN convoy, including UNRWA staff, were headed to the north of Gaza with polio vaccine to continue the emergency polio vaccination after the outbreak. They were detained for 8 hours, and including bulldozers being used running up against the convoy's SUVs. So sadly, this is not a unique experience, although it's a very hard one for us today because of the loss of so much staff at one time. Lorna, I'd just say this. The longer the world kind of turns a blind eye to the violations of international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions, frankly, the more they become irrelevant. And I think there's actors in the world who are standing by watching and noting this indifference. It starts in Gaza, but it might not end there.
Given everything you say, and you've lost 220 staff members, how are those that are still there feeling about carrying on?
I have never been prouder to work with a group of people like this. Remember, UNRWA has 33,000 staff, but only a couple of hundred are international staff like I am. These are Gaza refugees, Palestine refugees, excuse me, serving Gazans. And many of them have been displaced multiple times, but they just make you proud to work for the United Nations. They'll be up again tomorrow, they'll be back, and they'll be doing their job.
Bill Deere from UNRWA, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna.